Strapping into a new race car at an unfamiliar track generates stress, not dissimilar to when you're awaiting blood test results after a questionable social encounter. We imagine it's like that, anyway. But once you crawl into the seat and buckle in, there is no turning back. Even the clank 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 ringing from the rear as the limit slip differential fights a full lock exit from the garage sounds like some imminent disaster. A legitimate race car requires your full attention. No daydreaming. Adding rain to the mix elevates anxiety far beyond the physical fix this mark. That's exactly our situation in the pit lane at Misna World Circuit Marco Simoncelli outside of Rimini, Italy, as we flex our fingers to avoid death gripping the steering wheel of the new Mercedes-AMG GT3 racer. Misno, on the Adriatic coast east of the microstate of San Marino, is best known as a motorcycle track. This season will mark the 10th year in a row that it will host a MotoGP round. There's little change in track camber and zero change in elevation around the 2.6-mile circuit. From the garages we can see some hills, leaving the impression something dramatic may happen, but it turns out they are there only for picnicking race fans. The track is as flat as many 15th century Italians thought the world was, and water is pooling on the pavement. Just like the road car, only not at all Mercedes GT3 racer starts life in the same Sindelph engine factory as the street-going Mercedes AMG GT and GTS. The body in white is then shipped over to Affalterbach, where AMG completes the race car to meet Fiat GT3 regulations. All the body panels, including the massive fenders that swell the car's width by 4.4 inches to 80.7, are crafted from carbon fiber reinforced plastic. Suspension components are fabricated and welded in steel, the only carry-over parts being the front upper control arms. Little of the consumer model's lush interior remains identifiable, save for the basic dash and console shape, a circular vent or two, and the wiper stalk, which will play a critical role for us at Misna today. AMG invited journalists here to drive the first two GT3s it ever built, prototypes 1 and 2. Vinyl wrapped in flat grey and sporting a big vertical big reel, they look absolutely menacing at rest, before the side pipes start growling. It's impressive how clean these cars are, inside and out. Many race cars, even at the GT3 level, have gaps between body panels big enough to swallow your knuckles. Not this one. The tight, even panel fits are nearly production car perfect. Mercedes-AMG sells these cars to customer teams, for the princely sum of €372,000, about $420,000, so minimizing initial and operating costs is critical. This is why, according to AMG factory driver Thomas Jager, the cars use the older naturally aspirated 6.2-litre V8 rather than the production model's turbocharged 4.0-litre unit. A turbocharged engine adds a level of complexity that increases cost in the long run. Asked if he ever short shifts to preserve the engine in an endurance race, Jager responds, "There's no point. The engine is bulletproof." AMG sure seems to think so. It recommends a factory rebuild only every 12,750 miles, a distance Jager says might take some teams 2 racing seasons to accumulate. The Gearbox, a 6-speed transaxle co-developed with Hewland, is a different story, requiring a rebuild at 6,200-mile intervals. Customers participate in the Skaction Piley World Challenge in the US, as well as in several European, Asian, and South American series. The best part of GT3 racing today is the wide swath of manufacturers that are represented. In the Piley series, which has allowed Fiat GT3 cars since 2014, players include Mercedes-AMG, BMW, Audi, Cadillac, Aston Martin, Acura, Dodge, Porsche, Nissan, McLaren, Lamborghini, and Ferrari. This season's 11-race schedule includes significant road racing venues across North America, often supporting Verizon IndyCar or WeatherTech Sports Car Championship events. Each of the various governing bodies around the world employs its own and take stricter minimum weight rules to keep the racing competitive. Currently, World Challenge AMGs are still the former SL-spaced cars, which scored several top 10 finishes but no podiums in 2015. Hopes are to improve the record as teams move to the new GT3. AMG has sold 40 copies worldwide, half of which have already been delivered. Getting off feet wet running 5 familiarization laps of Misno in a street-grade 503 horsepower GTS before moving into the race car highlights the major differences between a car you could commute in, albeit one that can accelerate to 60 miles per hour in 3 seconds flat and corner at 1.05 grams, and its weaponized sibling. The GT3's seat, really more an open void, does not move. Instead, foam inserts are made to fit each driver. The pedal box adjusts forward and aft using a nifty toggle on a console that's accessible to the driver. Keeping the seat location fixed limits chassis balance changes when drivers swap stints during endurance races. The steering device, to call it a wheel seems wrong because it's not round, adjusts for rake and reach and is covered in buttons for race day necessities. 6-point belts hold the driver in place without limiting accessibility to all the controls on the console, including adjustments to brake bias, programming of the ABS and traction control, and the hazard lights. There is a clutch pedal in this car, but it's deliberately hidden because racers use it only to get the car moving. A lip on the left edge of the brake pedal keeps your left foot from sliding off and accidentally finding the clutch mid-lap. Shifts are executed with paddle sans clutch operation. If you've ever power shifted one of Detroit's finest muscle cars, shifting a sequential trans resembles those thrust punches, only it happens faster and without the anxiety of mechanical abuse. The 6.2-liter V8 may be German, but it sounds Italian when winding out to its 7,500 revolutions per minute red line. With a 36mm intake restrictor in place, it makes about 550 horsepower, but the GT3 doesn't feel as quick as the turbocharged street model, at least initially. This AMG is slammed to the ground and you sit so low that the long hood dulls a sense of speed. Quickly, though, we learn that the race car is much quicker, covering the ground between turns in significantly less time. With a homologated weight of 2,833 pounds, the GT3 is more than 800 pounds lighter than the road car. Above 50 miles per hour or so, the Aero devices come into play. There's a giant rear wing, a front splitter and dive planes, and an underfloor diffuser, all working to push the car down onto the tarmac, increasing the load on each tire, and thus grip. You notice the downforce most when braking. Slowing from 130 miles per hour, even in the rain, is drama-free, unless it is for one of Misno's tighter corners. There are 3 hairpin sharp corners among the circuit's 16 turns. Drop below the Aero threshold and the grip disappears rather abruptly. It's not as dramatic as when you hit black ice in winter, but it's a similar feeling. The brake pedal field dies as the race-tuned ABS works to scrub speed. It didn't take more than a couple of laps to learn the particulars of the brakes, a testament to the system's great feedback and sensitivity. Steering response at initial turn-in is surgically precise. The GT3 grabs can start radius turns immediately, but grip falls off halfway through the tightest corners. It feels like a low grip spot on the track or a pavement change more than something we can blame on the car or the wet weather Pirelli racing tires. We're driving the wet line, crossing slippery rubbery spots in places. The engine also produces plenty of low-end torque. AMG keeps the actual peak figure to itself with a linear delivery. We need to carefully add throttle in the rain, but the car gives the impression you could almost floor it and forget it in dry conditions, easing our pre-drive tension a little. In the faster corners, the Aero-aided GT3 sticks like a dart in a bullseye. Misnose turn 11 is a wide open, 5th gear, maybe 6th in the dry kink that the GT3 hums through without so much as a wiggle from the back end. It's intimidating because the previous corner feels like a skating rink. We slowly build confidence before keeping the right foot pinned at 130 miles per hour with the wipers going. By the time the AMG folks wave the checkered flag, we have just about learned the track and genuinely feel comfortable. The AMG never reacted strangely to inputs and instilled more confidence with every lap. These exercises typically end just about the time the scribes figure things out enough to pose a risk to the hardware, if not themselves. Running a race team requires a budget multiple times the car's near $500,000 purchase price. We're tempted to start saving, though, because you can't put a price on the feeling when pre-drive anxiety transitions to on-track euphoria. Really, we just want one more crack at this car, in dry conditions.